Welcome to my full recap of Season 4. This video will take you through Season 4 in its entirety. I really enjoyed doing these videos and can't wait for Season 5. Alright guys, grab some popcorn and sit back as we recap Slow Horses Season 4. Enjoy. Welcome ladies and gentlemen to my recap of Season 4 Episode 1 of Slow Horses. I love this show. I watched the first 3 seasons all back to back, and I've been waiting patiently for Season 4, and it's finally here. So let's get into the recap of this amazing episode. So the episode opens with Robbie Ho at the Chicky Doo for the Christmas party the horses were supposed to have. But nobody showed up. He's calling River, he's calling Lamb, nobody's picking up until Louisa picks up. From what it looks like to me, it looks like Lamb just sent Ho there to make him look like an idiot, because it turns out there was no Christmas party after all. Louisa then hangs up on Ho and we move to the next scene. As Ho's walking out of the Chickadoo with his headphones on and music blasted, great song they chose by the way. Great song. Out of nowhere, all of a sudden a bomb goes off in the background and he can't hear it because of his headphones. So, yeah, a freaking suicide bomber came through and blew a bitch up. Immediately after the bomb goes off, we then see the MI5 rolling up with a new guy named Claude Whelan and Agent Singh, along with Diana Kevin. We then immediately cut to lunch/dinner with Louisa and Cartwright. And he begins to say that he would like to tell her something. So she immediately jumps to the conclusion that he's about to tell her that he likes her. But that's not what he wants to tell her. What he wants to tell her is how hard it's been for him dealing with his grandfather, with his memory loss and his confusion, his hallucinations. He's basically saying that he's not the same person he was. He's got a blank stare. He's not there anymore mentally. So Louisa then tells him how important it is to go see him and spend time with him because he was always there for Cartwright. We then see David Cartwright for the first time this season, which is River's grandfather, the one that's going crazy. We see him, he's walking to his home. He is hearing things, seeing things, going a little crazy. But he eventually makes it into the home and passes out, sitting in his chair, holding a shotgun. David's then woken up by a knock at the door. It's who we think is River Cartwright. We can hear his voice, but we never see him. But the person runs up the stairs to the bathroom, says he's going to take a shower. So David becomes paranoid, grabs his shotgun and his panic button, and follows him up the stairs, goes into the bathroom, and blows him away with the shotgun. We then see blood everywhere. He's staring at the blood, a lot of blood. And he says, I can't believe I just did that. And then we immediately jump to the intro for Slow Horses. And can we just take a moment to appreciate how incredible that opening theme song is for this show? It is indeed a very strange game. We then get our first look at my favorite character of this whole show, Jackson Lamb. He is just great. He is a beautiful character. So out there, so funny. I love him. I love him. He does this character amazingly. But he's woken up, he's miserable, he's a drunk. His phone's blowing up because everybody wants to know what happened at the Cartwright's house. And so he drives over there. And he meets the replacement for Duffy, which he doesn't seem to get along with too well. He's very sarcastic with her, very nasty with her. It's great TV, it really is. And so he goes in the house, and he is the one that needs to confirm if it is indeed River Cartwright or not. And he does confirm that it is. But as you can see in the reflection in the mirror, I don't know about you, but to me that does not look like River Cartwright. I promise it'll make sense later in the video. So after Lamb confirms that it is indeed River Cartwright, in air quotes, they leave the scene of the crime and they go their separate ways. And Lamb is very upset that he just lost a member of his crew. Back in Slough House, we have the return of Marcus and Shirley from the previous season. And Marcus was waterboarding Shirley and she lost the bet. So for some reason, they are counting paper clips. I don't really get it, but they're two cool characters, so let's keep going. Immediately following, we meet the new secretary taking over for Catherine Standish, Moira. Following that, we meet another brand new character to this story named J.K. Coe. He is very strange. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't do anything. He just sits there and stays quiet, taps his fingers, and screams occasionally. It makes me quite uncomfortable, but I want to see where it goes. We then see this guy that is clearly connected to the bombing situation that happened earlier in the episode. And he basically went on and on and on a crazy rant how he's going to make everybody pay for putting him through their system and doing whatever they did to him, putting him through whatever they did. And he's out for vengeance. He is ready to get some payback. Then these MI5 guys start rushing up to this guy's apartment and they bust down the front door and they get in there. They give the all clear. It's all clear. It's all good. There's no issues. Nobody's there. And so they start searching and they come across this guy's passport. As you can see, this guy's name is Robert Michael Winters. This is the guy that we saw before on the news, and they've gotten into his apartment. They know who he is. He's not hiding his identity, and I have a feeling he's gonna get his ass handed to him by these motherfuckers, not gonna lie. So once they find that passport, the MI5 soldiers get out of there and they call in forensics to do a full sweep of the apartment. Now this guy right here, he opens the curtains in that apartment, and when he does that, that sets off the booby trap of explosives to blow up. And everything gets crazy, everybody gets blown to pieces, they lose signal back at the command center, and it's just a whole big disaster. Now here's the interesting part. Back at the command station, Diana is not bothered by how many people just were killed by the explosives going on. But Claude over here is extremely distraught and doesn't really know how to handle it because he's new to this whole thing. But the entire time Diana is just straight-faced, not bothered by it at all. Kind of strange. Diana simply says we need to get a new team in there ASAP and catch these bad guys. Back at Slough House, Lamb had sent Ho a text to let everybody know that River Cartwright was shot and killed by his grandfather David Cartwright, supposedly. Like I said, you'll find out towards the end of the video what actually happened. So here we are back with Mr. Jackson Lamb, and he decided to show up at his old secretary's house, Catherine Standish. And he explains that he wanted her to be the first to know what happened to River Cartwright. And the entire time he's explaining the situation to her, she is not reacting properly to the situation. So he does a little bit of prying after his usual humor bits are done. And so he knows that she knows something. And he does his very best to get it out of her. And he got her to admit that River was there. And he was like, you know what, let me go check the bedroom. Let me see if David Cartwright's in there. Sure enough, he walks in the bedroom. There's David Cartwright laying in the bed. He wakes him up. And Lamb simply asks, where is River Cartwright? Immediately after discovering the whereabouts of David Cartwright, we cut to this taxi driving around where we see another man holding another passport in the back of the taxi. This is not the same passport that we found before. This is a different person's passport. Who's holding that passport, you might ask? None other than River Cartwright. He is alive. He is not dead. This is great. This was an amazing first episode to this fourth season of this incredible show. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. What was David and River doing at Standish's house? What are they doing there? Why is she hiding David? Why did River run away to go after this other dude? Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. This is the first ever time I've done a video like this before. Please leave me some feedback in the comments of what I can do better. I'm going to try to do this for every single episode of Slow Horses in the future. Thank you guys for watching and have a great day. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the second installment of my Slow Horses review series. Today we're going to be reviewing Season 4, Episode 2 of Slow Horses. Let's get right into it. Alright, so the episode opens with River pulling up to his grandfather's house, and he goes in the house, and then we see his grandfather in the bathroom right after he shot the guy from last week's episode, thinking it was River, but it wasn't. But he's in his delusional state of mind where he is convinced that it is River, but it is not River. River then enters the bathroom with a shotgun pointed at him by his own grandfather, and his grandfather is so delusional that he thinks that it's an imposter pretending to be River, when in reality it is indeed River Cartwright. River then says to ask him a question that only he would know the answer to, and his grandfather does, and that's when he actually realizes that that's really River, and that he did not kill River like he thinks he did. River begins to examine the body of the person that his grandfather killed, and he finds diazepam on his body, meaning that they were going to drug his grandfather and most likely drown him in the tub. River then finds on the body a return train ticket to France and a receipt from Le Bronx Rousse, a cafe in France. According to this dude's passport, his name is Adam Lockhead. The grandfather gets very panicked with all the questions River is asking, and he presses the panic button that we first saw last week. So now that means MI5 are notified that there's a problem. So he needs to kind of cover his tracks, cover up the situation, and get them both out of that house as soon as possible. River then plants his wallet and his phone on this guy's dead body to throw off the investigation and have them think that it was him that died based off the wallet and the phone being on the body. But clearly, as we know, it's not him. He's not dead. He just planted his stuff on this body to throw off the investigation. Once he plants that stuff, he then proceeds to blow off this guy's face with the shotgun, so he's unrecognizable, to make it even harder to identify. So immediately after River blows off this guy's face, he proceeds to throw up in the toilet, and then we get the opening intro for Slow Horses Season 4, Episode 2. We then cut to MI5 with Deanna and Geedy. She says that she's received the passport of the bomber from his apartment, and they're discussing it, and they get to the elevator, and she says that they basically need to keep this quiet, and she makes a call to put Geedy on like a high security watch pretty much, and Diana's trying to figure out a way to cover it up, because it turns out that this Winters character was once a member of the MI5, and they have all these fake documents on him. They created all these fake documents, fake social, fake credit report, fake everything, and it turns out the bomber is tied to the MI5. We then go back to Standish's house, and David is convinced that he killed River, and both her and Jackson are telling him that he didn't, and he is so confused, so lost. He thinks that Catherine Standish is his wife, Rose, which obviously she's not. He's very confused. He gets up, tries to leave. He has no idea where he is. Jackson tries to press him and get some answers, but he doesn't seem to have any clue what's going on, can't answer any questions. He's just convinced that he killed River. Then Jackson leaves and heads back to Slough House while Standish is there, left to deal with David and his mental issues all by herself. Then River Cartwright arrives in France. Also, I forgot to mention earlier that Cartwright took the passport and the one-way train ticket from the guy that his grandfather killed. Back at MI5 now, we are with Claude and Diana. They're having a conversation when Claude's phone rings and he blames Diana, but it was his phone. Now Diana has him sign his condolences for the people that were lost in the bombings, but Diana also has Claude sign some extra paperwork that basically forces him to agree to go along with covering up the previous MI5 person that was actually the bomber in the previous episode. Now they want to cover it up. They don't want it getting out. Nobody's allowed to know that a former MI5 person was behind the attack. Back with River in France now, he is searching for the cafe that the River lookalike supposedly showed up at recently. Back at Slough House now, it's a conversation between Shirley and Marcus admits that he's back to gambling. He's only done it once, but he needs $10,000. So what does he want to do? He wants to sell a handgun on the street to make that money, unless he can get it some other way. Jackson then shows up at Slough House and tells Ho to reread the text that he sent him, and he rereads it and he says, "I was up all night identifying Cartwright's body," but in the text he never said he was dead. So that's when he reveals that Cartwright is not dead. He is indeed in France in search for these guys that came after his grandfather. Lamb then goes to his office and sees the new secretary cleaning, and that makes him very, very suspicious. Back with Giddy and Diana again. Diana tells Giddy that there was a mix-up and it was a different Winter, a Winter without an S, and she tells the other lady that she's good to go to release her. Diana says it was all a big mishap and is completely lying to cover up what actually happened. River then makes it to the cafe and orders himself a latte and asks the guy behind the counter if he's seen anybody here recently that looks similar to him. And he says yes. He says, "I actually know the guy." And he tells River exactly where to go. When River leaves the cafe, we see this guy out here that is clearly knows what he's up to and is after River. Alright, so Diana and Cloud aboard a bus here, and this is where Diana reveals to Cloud that the paperwork he signed was for him to take accountability for the cover-up. And then Claude accuses her of doing that to him because he got the job at the front desk instead of her. And she says, "No, I'm just better at doing this than you." So she gets off the bus and tells him to go to the next stop. And Claude is furious because he had no clue that he signed that because he didn't read the paperwork. Well, at the end of the day, that's his fault, isn't it? He should pay more attention to what he's signing before he signs it, because now he's going to go down for the cover-up and not her. Immediately following, we meet this French guy that's clearly connected with the bombings and the attempted assassination of David Cartwright. And what he does is he sets up a camera to see when David or River return home so they can strike when they're home. This French guy then gets in the car and calls this guy right here. And we get a name reveal for the guy that was killed. Bertrand. And this guy's looking out his window right now, and he's able to see River Cartwright. We then cut to River, who's climbing over this giant wall to get to Bertrand's house and see what's going on with these people. We then return to Lamb and the new secretary having lunch. Lamb knows what she's up to. He knows that she's looking for things and watching him very closely. And he basically tells her that she needs to go back to where she came from immediately. He does not like her at all, and that's about that. Cartwright is then spotted by what looks like to be the leader of this group responsible for all this shit. So here's where things really get crazy. River enters the building and grabs a knife, sees some revolvers, takes a picture of this mural on the wall that they have in there, opens a book, finds a picture of all the members of this crew, looks down the flight of stairs, sees it's on fire, runs out of the house on fire, gets attacked by this dude from behind. Then we get a clear shot of his face. That's him right there. Then this guy barges in with a shotgun and shoots the wall to scare this guy off, then takes Cartwright out of the house. Then he knocks him out with the butt of his shotgun and drives off with him. Then the show ends with a shot of the burning building. This was Season 4, Episode 2 of Slough Horses. I hope you enjoyed my recap. This is only the second time I've done something like this, so if you guys could leave me feedback in the comments of what I can do better, I'd appreciate it very much. If you enjoyed, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys next week. Alright guys, today we are going to recap episode 3 of season 4 of Slough Horses. This episode is titled Penny for Your Thoughts. The episode opens with River being trapped in the kidnapper's house. As he wakes up, he begins to try to escape from the house. When he realizes he can't, he makes enough noise to get the kidnapper's attention, who then barges into the room with a shotgun. The kidnapper simply says, "Someone is coming to talk to you." We then cut to the intro for Slough Horses. We then see David washing his hands in the bathroom, who is still convinced he killed River. Catherine, standing outside the bathroom, then tells David that it was not River but simply someone who looked like him. David then asks, "Where is River if he's not dead? And why did he leave me here?" David then recalls the bomb that went off in episode 1 and says he needs to contact the first desk. Catherine urges that River doesn't want that to prevent word getting out about what happened. David sits down for a cup of tea and reaffirms to Catherine that he needs to speak to the first desk. We then cut to Jackson Lamb for the first time this episode entering Slough House. Lamb sees footprints on the floor leading to upstairs. He then tells Louisa to tell Catherine to move David because the MI5 are onto him. Jackson then goes up to his office to find the head of the dogs on a flight. She asks Lamb where River is, and he says he has no clue. She then handcuffs Lamb and says she's taking him in for obstructing the investigation. On their way out, Lamb says he will tell Emma where David is if she sets him free, which she does. Lamb then tells Emma that David is stashed at Catherine's house. On her way out, Emma runs into Robbie, who begins flirting with her, which ends up leaving him handcuffed to his gym equipment. We then immediately cut to MI5, where Claude asks you to take a second look at the cold body despite Taverner's wishes to point resources elsewhere so she can continue on with the cover-up currently going on within MI5. Claude then asks you to report directly to him regarding the cold body, and to keep it between them to ensure Taverner doesn't find out. We then find Molly in the basement. She says she's tired of the games between first and second desk, and she is definitely on Taverner's side of the power struggle going on here. We then cut back to River and friends, and we see a crowd of people surrounding the house who are confusing River with Bertrand, along with a woman walking into the house who turns out to be Bertrand's mother. River tells her she needs to tell him who they are and where he can find them. We then cut to Louisa walking towards Catherine's house, while leaving her a voicemail telling her that she needs to move David as soon as possible because Emma is on her way to look for him. Louisa tries to distract her from entering by pretending someone is following her, but that plan backfires when Emma hands the job over to her colleague. Emma then enters Catherine's home in pursuit of David Cartwright, but he is nowhere to be found. Back in Slough House now, we see Shirley, Marcus, and J.K. talking about the possibility of another attack. Shirley then discusses with Marcus how it's a bad idea to sell his weapon on the streets, but he needs the money for bills, so he has no choice but to sell it. Shirley then gets a call from Ho, and he's asking for help removing the handcuffs placed on him by Emma Flight earlier in the episode. Shirley and Co then head downstairs to help Ho, and Co removes the handcuffs, but then Shirley triggers Cum, and he snaps and puts a knife to her throat. He eventually lets her go and leaves Ho hanging with the fist bump. He says, "I don't like to be touched." We then return back to France with Rover, Victor, and Bertrand's mother. We then find out the name of the father, Frank Harkness. The mother moved away because Frank would never let her see her son. Victor then admits that he thought that River was Bertrand. We then find out the bomber's name, Eve. Apparently, Frank gets a ton of women pregnant, and once they have the baby, they are forced to leave. Victor then goes outside to calm the people and tell them that River is not Bertrand, but Victor ends up getting knocked out by the mob of people, and River has to come up with an escape plan on the spot. He jumps out the bathroom window, falls through a roof, gets chased by a dog, but he eventually makes it out unharmed by stealing someone's bike. We return to Catherine's house with Louisa. Catherine takes Louisa to see David at his new safe house, but he seems to have escaped. They enter the house and find the back door left open. Bad Sam Chapman then receives a call from Lamb telling him to meet him at a laundromat to discuss how he is being followed by the Westacres, who is then given the order to kill Sam out of sight and then go after Cartwright. Marcus then meets up with the dancer to sell him the gun. After some negotiating, they settle on $3,000 for the gun. Lamb then receives a call from Sam, and Lamb informs him that someone tried to kill David Cartwright and got blown away with a shotgun. Sam then says he's headed to fallback number 2. Lamb then says he'll have Marcus and Shirley follow Sam as backup. The attacker then pushes Marcus through a glass window and then continued his pursuit for Sam. Sam then makes it to the garage with the attacker close behind. Shirley then stabs the attacker and gets hit with the pistol. Marcus then tackles the attacker, and then Jackson Lamb hits the attacker with a car. They then go to collect the body, but he has mysteriously disappeared and is nowhere to be found. The show closes with Marcus, Shirley, and Lamb confused as to what just happened. This was my review and recap of Season 4 Episode 3 of Slough Horses. I hope you enjoyed it, and I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to the channel for more weekly recaps in the future. Thank you, and I'll see you next week for Episode 4. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to my review of Episode 4 of Season 4 of Slough Horses, titled Returns. The show opens with Lamb, Sam, Shirley, and Marcus in the car. Lamb wants to discuss the events that took place in Lyons, France, but Sam tells him he will discuss it with him when they get back to the office. We then follow Frank into a building with 2 security guards who make him go through a metal detector. Then he walks into a room, and we meet the person that ordered the assassination attempts of David Cartwright and Sam Chapman. Frank sits down and explains that the bombing in Westacres didn't go as planned. It was supposed to be a quiet assassination in the parking lot, but it turned into a bombing. The guy that ordered the assassinations then tells Frank that he basically has no choice but to execute him so that word doesn't get out. But Frank explains to him that he's not the only one that knows. He says David and Sam also know about what's happening, so this crazy guy tells Frank that if he can get David and Sam killed by midnight, he can work for him. Frank agrees to get the job done. We then cut to the wonderful intro for Slough Horses. Lamb, Sam, Shirley, and Marcus then pull up at Slough House, and they see Diana waiting outside to speak to Lamb. Lamb walks over to Diana, and Diana says that Lamb lied to Flight about the whereabouts of David Cartwright. Diana then asks where River Cartwright is. Lamb says he is in France, retracing the assassin's steps. Lamb then reveals to Diana that he told the Flight that David was at Catherine's house. Turns out that Flight never told Diana this information. Diana leaves by saying if either of the Cartwrights show up, she wants to be the first to know. Lamb, Sam, Shirley, and Marcus then make their way upstairs, where they meet Catherine, where she explains that she lost David Cartwright. He escaped from the safe house, and she reveals that he is on his way to speak to First Desk. We then see the attacker who tried to kill Sam in the last episode meeting up with Frank to discuss what happened last week. The attacker then explains to Frank that he couldn't get the job done because Sam had backup. And Frank grabs the shoulder that was hurt from getting hit by the car and tells him that he needs to get the job done or else they're all dead. The attacker agrees to get the job done. We then sit down with Lamb and Sam as Sam recalls the events of the job he did for David Cartwright many years ago. David sent Sam to France to deliver a vehicle full of money, weapons, and cold bodies to this group of mercenaries in exchange for a woman. Sam had no idea any weapons or money were stashed in the vehicle. David told Sam not to search the vehicle. Very strange if you ask me. Lamb then realizes that David is most likely going to the old first desk location due to his mental decline, so they head there to investigate. Back with David now, we see that Lamb was indeed correct. He is heading to the old first desk location. Back at the park now, we see Diana and Emma having a conversation where Emma reveals to Diana that Lamb misidentified the body back in episode 1, and it was indeed not River Wright who was killed. Diana then says how disappointed she is in Emma for her performance regarding this whole situation. Diana warns Emma that if she goes behind her back one more time, she is out. Diana orders Emma to find the Cartwrights immediately following this. Emma receives a call from the old building where they inform her that they have David Cartwright waiting to speak to the first desk. Back with Lamb, Catherine, and Sam now, they are headed to the old office. It is then revealed that Flight is also on her way to get David. Back at the park, Claude informs Diana that he gave Judy permission to check the archives again for any more cold bodies. Judy reveals that she did indeed find another one, Adam Lockheed. They then connect the dots with Adam Lockheed or Bertrand being the one sent to kill David and Robert Winters being the one who bombed the Westacres. Claude then says he'll debrief David and orders MI5 to be audited and to review the practices, then says their findings will be public. Diana then shoots this down and says what's more important is to prevent another bomb from going off. Judy then comes back and reveals that Adam Lockheed is on his way back from France. But as we all know, this is actually River on his way back. River appears for the first time this episode on a train on his way back to London. Back with Lamb and the crew, they have made it to the old building, but the dogs are not far behind. Lamb sends Catherine and Sam to fetch David. They then enter, and Sam tries to convince David in his confused state to go with Sam. Catherine then sets off an alarm to create a distraction. The dogs then enter looking for David, but he has already escaped out the back door and gets in the vehicle. Lamb then tells Sam to go get his flight fund and to let him know when he is safe. Emma and the dogs are then chasing after River because they know his train is about to arrive, and they need to catch him while they have the chance. River arrives in London and gets off the train, and is then spotted by Emma and the dogs. They then chase after River for a while, but River manages to board another train just before the door shut. By doing this, he manages to escape Emma and the dogs. Immediately following, we see Frank talking to the guy that is supposed to kill Sam and David. Frank is not sure how Emma and the dogs were able to get one step ahead of them when it comes to locating River. We see Sam on his way to the office to get his fight fund. He checks the cameras and sees that there is nobody in the building. As Sam enters the building, we see his killer looming eerily above him. Sam enters the office and grabs a chair so he can reach into the ceiling to grab his money. As he does this, we see his killer jump down, and he is waiting for him by the window. Sam goes over to the window and gets hit in the face with a weapon. The attacker really goes hard beating down Sam. We see lots of blood and hear lots of screaming. We leave Sam in the middle of this attack, and we are left unsure as to if Sam was killed or not. We are now back with River, and he has made it back to his grandfather's house. He manages to sneak in and heads upstairs to David's bedroom. River grabs a box full of pictures that David has kept over the years. He digs deeper into the box and finds the art that was on the walls in the compound back in France. What does this mean? What is David hiding? Who is the girl that was extracted from the compound in return for the money and weapons? I guess we'll have to wait and see. River then sees MI5 swarming the house, and they are on the hunt for him. They search the entire house, but River is nowhere to be found. They then leave after not seeing him. Turns out he was hiding in the attic. As he jumps down, none other than Emma is behind him. and they lock eyes, and that is how this episode fades to black. This was my review and recap of Season 4, Episode 4 of Slow Horses. I hope you enjoyed it, and I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to the channel for more weekly recaps in the future. Thank you, and I'll see you next week for Episode 5. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to my review of Episode 5 of Season 4 of Slow Horses, titled Grave Danger. The episode opens with Molly getting off of a bus and heading to her apartment. She then enters her apartment and hears a knock at the door. She goes to answer, and it is none other than Frank Harkness. He pretends to be a maintenance man and says he would like to check for a leak. Molly asks to see some ID, and he then unzips his jacket, revealing that he has a gun on him. Molly lets him in, and then we cut to River Cartwright and Emma at his grandfather's house. River is handcuffed and loaded into a vehicle so Emma can bring him to the park. We then see the camera that was planted by Frank's guy at David's house in the last episode. Back with Molly and Frank, now Frank reveals that he pretended to be someone from Molly's past in order to obtain the addresses of David Cartwright and Sam Chapman. Frank then says to Molly he needs to know where the dogs are taking his person of interest, which of course is River Cartwright. Molly says that they are taking him to the park. Frank wants Molly's fingerprint and access codes so he can track the whereabouts of River and the dogs on their way to the park. Frank threatens to hurt Molly if she doesn't give him what he wants. We then cut to the beautiful intro for Slow Horses. Back with Emma and River, now she was looking at the photograph of Frank and his team, and she asked River where he got this. River says he is not telling her anything until she tells him where his grandfather is. Emma agrees to give him 5 minutes with his grandfather. River says he is at Catherine's house, and Emma informs him that David is not there. Emma then calls Diana and informs her that she has River in her possession. Diana then asks Emma to bring her Adam Lockhead's passport. She then hangs up the phone. Emma gets back in the car. We're now with Lamb, David, and Catherine. David asks where they're going, and Lamb says to sit back and shut up. Now with Marcus, Shirley, and Louisa. Louisa finds out that Marcus sold the gun he had in that last episode to someone who sells to organized crime members. Louisa then gets a call from River's mother, and she reveals to her that River is not dead and the body was misidentified. Louisa then informs her that David is missing, and she doesn't seem to want anything to do with him. She says they haven't spoken in years and they'll find out later exactly why. With Ho and Moira at Slough House, it is revealed to Moira who is responsible for moving her to Slough House. It was indeed the decision of Claude. Louisa then orders a meeting with everyone at Slough House and orders Ho and the others to track down the man who attacked Sam last week and the backstreet doctor who patched him up. At the park, Diana informs Claude that River is on his way with Emma to the park. They then discuss how Adam Lockheed and Robert Winter's passport has been used over the years to carry out various murders, not just what's been happening recently. We then find out that Judy signed a paper that gives her no choice but to keep her mouth shut, otherwise she'll risk losing her job. Diana then says that they need to find out who pulled the trigger in David's bathroom, and that keeping them both out of jail will buy them everlasting silence from the two, therefore preventing word from getting out. We're now back with Frank and Molly. Frank signs into Molly's computer and sees the location of River, Emma, and the dogs. Back again with Emma and River. River convinces Emma to forward the picture of Frank and his group to the park by saying if his grandfather dies, that is going to be on Emma's shoulders. Emma then calls Judy and tells her to take the picture to Claude. Then David and Catherine then pull up to the cemetery where David's wife, Rose, is buried. And Lamb begins to press David on what the deal is and what these people from France want. David simply says he did it for her, his daughter, Rose's mother. She was taken by Frank, so David sent Sam with the car, money, and weapons in order to get his daughter back. It is then revealed that David never told Rose about what he had to do in order to get their daughter back. They are after David and Sam now because they know they can both look into the Westacres bombing, and anyone who knows the connection is on their kill list. Patrice then shows up at Molly's apartment, and Frank is still there. Frank pulls up the whole Slough Horse's crew on Molly's computer and asks him who was there when he went to attack Sam but ended up getting hit by a car in episode 3. He says Lamb, Shirley, and Marcus were there. Patrice is then reprimanded for letting the horses get the upper hand on him. Frank then tells Patrice to go back to channel his grief and rage and to go to his station. Frank then checks to see where River and Emma are again. At the park, Gitta shows the photo of Frank and his crew to Diana, and she says to get their descriptions out there, and if they're in the country, she wants them brought into her. We then cut to Frank eating an apple overlooking the street as Patrice is stealing a truck to cause a roadblock to trap Cartwright, Emma, and the dogs, leaving them nowhere to run. At Slough House, Louisa calls Lamb to let him know that the dogs have River, and that Sam might not be safe. Lamb is now looking for Sam, and Catherine is bringing David back to Slough House to keep him safe. Frank then makes it seem like he's going to kill Molly now that he's gotten all the info he needed, but for some reason, he decided to spare her life. Molly then goes up to a bunch of envelopes with names written on them, one of those names being Claude. Back with River and Emma for the final time this episode, as they're about to reach the park. Patrice creates a massive roadblock preventing them from going anywhere and opens fire on everyone. Patrice takes out the dogs very easily and begins to fire at Emma and River. Emma and Patrice are going back and forth taking shots at one another until he manages to get close enough to Emma to smash her head into the vehicle, which ends up knocking her out cold. That leaves River on his own, handcuffed to the car. Patrice shoots the handcuffs free, grabs River, and throws him into the trunk of someone's car that he just killed. We fade to black with no idea where Patrice is taking River. This was my review and recap of Season 4, Episode 5 of Slough Horses. I hope you enjoyed it, and I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to the channel for more weekly recaps in the future. My question for you guys after seeing this episode: do you guys think Frank is River's dad? Leave your comments down below. Thank you, and I'll see you next week for episode 6. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to my review of episode 6 of season 4 of Slough Horses, titled Hello Goodbye. This episode opens where we left off last week. In the wreckage caused by Patrice and the dogs, we see the 2 dead dogs, Emma in rough shape after everything that happened. Emma then calls Diana to inform her of what happened. Emma lets her know that River was taken by Patrice. Diana then says she wants Cartwright in an interrogation room and Patrice killed. Claude then overrules her and puts out a shoot-and-kill order on Cartwright. We then cut to River as he's in the trunk of a car being taken somewhere by Patrice. Cartwright pulls out his phone and attempts to make a call, but Patrice exits the vehicle and tells him to get out of the trunk. Patrice then leads him to Frank. River sees Frank, then sits down. River says hello dad, and Frank says hello son. We then get to see the intro for Slough Horses for the final time this season. Back with River and Frank now, River reveals that he recognized the paintings on the wall in France, so he knew that his mother was there because they were used on birthday cards she sent River when he was younger. Frank then says he was using his mother to secure funds and means. Frank tells him to ask his grandfather about that. Frank then offers River a job working for him. River says he wants nothing to do with him. Frank tells River, when you're the target, attack. When you're being pursued, stand still. River then reveals that his mother told him that Frank died in a car crash. River then tries to make a call, but Frank spots him and pulls the battery out of the phone. We then see Catherine and David at Slough House. Catherine tells Moria that Jackson has gone looking for Sam, who we haven't seen since he was killed by Patrice in episode 3. Louisa then reveals to everyone that River called her, but the phone has been switched off. She then tells Ho to trace it. They then review the CCTV footage of the attack on River, Emma, and the dogs by Patrice. We then see Marcus trying to get the gun he sold to the dancer back. He brings 3,000, but he wants 5,000. Marcus then leaves without the gun. With Emma and Louisa now, they discuss the shoot-and-kill order on River. Louisa tells Emma to find a way to have that order reversed. With Lamb now, he smashes the window to Sam's office and finds him lying on the ground dead. As he's leaving, he takes the bottle of liquor with him, which will be very important later. With Patrice now, he's using Sam's phone and he's listening to the voicemail left by Moira telling Sam that David is at Slough House, therefore revealing David's location to Patrice. Back with Frank and River, Frank says he has 2 tickets to Europe and he wants River to go with him, but obviously River isn't on board with that. River tells him not to do anything to his grandfather, but Frank says he can link him to the Westacres. River says, but so can I. We then see MI5 storming the area and Frank begins to panic. With Marcus at Slough House now, it is revealed that he went and gambled in order to get enough money to buy his gun back. Immediately following this, shots fired as Patrice invades Slough House and tries to take a shot at Ho and the others. The others try to get a gun out of the desk to offer backup for Marcus. River and Frank are then surrounded by MI5, and Frank has a gun to River's back. Frank then puts a grenade in River's jacket in order to kill him and try to escape MI5 at the same time. Louisa gets the grenade out of his jacket just in time and throws it into a nearby body of water just as it explodes. Frank is then on the run trying to make his escape. Back in Slough House, they manage to get the weapon out of the desk. We then see JK making tea, which will be used as a weapon later. Shirley throws a knife at Patrice, and JK throws the tea at him as well. River, Louisa, and MI5 then continue the chase for Frank as shots continue firing at Slough House. Patrice then hits JK with a shot right after that. Marcus manages to land one on Patrice. Marcus then escorts Shirley to the room with Catherine and the others. He then leaves the room and continues the search for Patrice. All this is happening while the others are still chasing after Frank. Marcus is then shot and killed by Patrice. Shirley now prepares to shoot Patrice. River stops running with the rest of the crew and decides to take his dad's advice and stand still. Shirley and Patrice then fire shots at each other, and Shirley manages to hit him, but he then breaks into the room. And Lamb saves the day by hitting him in the head with the bottle he took from Sam's office earlier in the episode. Shirley realizes that Marcus has been killed. River then locates Frank and says exactly what his father told him earlier. Frank then hands his weapon over to River and surrenders to MI5. Louisa then asks River who that is, and River says, "My dad." Back with Shirley as she finds Marcus dead. They then handcuff Patrice to the radiator. Then gets a call from Molly and she says she needs to show him something. Ho and David are in the bathroom with Catherine, telling them to come out, but they think it's a trap. Shirley then attempts to shoot and kill Patrice, but she can't bring herself to do it. JK says Marcus wouldn't want this, and that he loved her and he wanted her to love herself. She then hands the gun to JK, and he shoots and kills Patrice. Diana is now interrogating Frank. She says it's over for Frank, but then he reveals he has a backup plan, a failsafe. Emma then interrupts them, saying something has come up. Diana then heads to Slough House to see the mess left by all the gunfire and sits down to talk to Lamb. Lamb shows Diana the letters Frank had Molly write up, and it's revealed that they have 12 hours to release Harkness, otherwise the contents of the letters will be made public. With Moira at the park, she has a meeting with Claude and reveals that she knows that he was the one who sent her to Slough House. She demands her job back and a 4-day work week, then the meeting concludes. With River and David now, River has put David in a home, and David is not happy. All David wants to do is go home, but River says he can't be trusted on his own anymore. David says to River he promised him he would never do this to David, but River insists he had no choice. River then leaves and gets a call from Lamb. Lamb tells him to meet him at a nearby bar. River makes it to the bar, and Lamb simply asks him to sign paperwork recounting the events that have taken place over the course of this entire season, and that is how Season 4 fades to black. This was my review and recap of Season 4, Episode 6 of Slow Horses. I hope you enjoyed it, and I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to the channel for more weekly recaps in the future. Leave your comments down below. What an incredible season this has been, and I want to thank every single one of you for coming along for the ride with me. I will be covering more Apple TV shows in the future, and videos will continue when Season 5 of Slow Horses premieres. I look forward to seeing you guys then. Also, a full recap of season 4 is coming soon.